Morning, Bill.
Good morning, Bill. How are you, sir?
I'm pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a little cold.
a little cold.
Yeah, but considering it's January, I guess we'll take it, right?
I mean, I think compared to most people, our January is pretty mild compared
Hmm.
to theirs, right? Like we went. I've been trying to do more walking already this year and using it as an excuse to go listen to like audiobooks and stuff. So
Hmm.
I went for a walk. When was that? That was Saturday, and I tried to walk out of the house with like a hoodie, another jacket, and a pair of gloves. And Melissa was like, "You realize it's not that cold outside, right?" I was like, I'm going to be out there for an hour. It's going to be windy. It's going to be breezy. So I
Yeah,
decided on one hoodie and a pair of gloves,
got
and it was perfect. It was perfect.
it. That's
Gloves,
funny.
gloves are like a low key, huge difference maker when it's like that
Oh,
in between cold. And people don't think about this. Young people don't think about this. I think older people know about this because we're old.
yeah,
But if it's like 50, man, hoodie and gloves as opposed to thicker jacket without gloves,
yeah,
gloves all day.
for
Game
sure.
changer.
Those extremities.
Yeah,
They
absolutely.
matter.
Because
They matter.
it's not like your core body is the part that's cold. It's the extremities. So
Yeah,
take care of
that
those
sounds
things.
struggling. That's a good point because and I actually started cold plunging this year, and
Yeah.
it's the same. It's my toes and fingers are
Hmm.
freezing when I'm in the water. The rest of
Yeah.
me, like once you get past the shock, it's like I'm cold,
Hmm.
right? But like, and then you get out and you got the needles and stuff like that, but
Oh,
it's
yeah.
always in my toes and fingers. So
Yeah. Interesting.
yeah.
How are
So
you doing your cold plunges?
the pool over here is in the 40s, the low 40s,
Oh, okay. So
because of the
you're just
weather.
like walking by and the pool's closed. They have the sign that says pool closed, and you're just that guy who's like, well, we're just gonna hop this fence and hop in the
Yep.
water.
Plunge open, pool closed.
Who's playing around here? No one's playing.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
being productive.
Serious business. So no, it's open. They're just like, no one's dumb enough to get in. We don't have to lock the gate. And then
Mhm.
my bald butt gets in there and splashes around and pretends like I'm doing something useful.
I love that. Good for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did a I did some ice plunges like a couple of years ago back at the I went up to Maine for Jocko's jiu-jitsu intensive week thing,
Yeah.
and some guys were doing like ice plunges there. They were like big Wim Hof guys, and so
Oh,
I
yeah.
did one of them, and it was a cool experience. Like very helpful with inflammation, and obviously, but you have to. There's a mental component to it that you have to kind of work through, or else you're not going to get any benefit from it. You just jump in and jump out, or whatever. You
Right.
know, uh, that was something I wasn't really expecting the first try. So that was very interesting.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody about it and they were like, why are you doing it? I explained the physical benefits from doing it. But then I was like, actually, what I'm really doing is training my mind to make everything else seem really easy the rest of my day. Because once you do
Yes.
that, literally, it's funny. After the third time I did it, I had a long cardio. So I go cold plunge, change clothes, go to the gym, right? Immediately
Mm-hmm.
for my body. And I hate long cardio. Like it's my forever. I've always hated long cardio. And after I got out of my third cold plunge, I went, cardio's no big deal. I got this. Like it's not a big deal. Like I was
Yeah.
not intimidated. Not there was no anxiety. There was no like dread. Like ugh. I was like, oh, I just did the hard part. It's
Yeah.
crazy how quick that worked.
And I have a different metaphor, but the same situation, right? So the beard is a newer thing for me. I've never had a beard before, and like you have to brush the beard, and that brush kind of sucks, right? Like I'll pick it up in the morning and I like look at it and I'm like, oh, like this sucks a little bit. Like that first one just sucks, right? Just prickly and uncomfortable and everything. And then after that, it feels fine and I look better. But you have to do that first one, or else you don't get the outcome that you're looking for. And
That's
I
true.
and I think of it as a similar situation, right? You can make it out to be like, oh my god, this is gonna be worse than I think it is, or you can just like go through with the action kind of
Yes.
deal.
Yeah,
Don't overthink
absolutely.
it.
Anything you can do to challenge yourself first thing in the morning, I think is a great idea.
It is such a pace setter. I think, for the rest of the day. Like, and I think about this a lot on the weekends because during the week I get up, especially whenever we're doing this show and everything, right? And if we're doing it 5 days a week, it's like I get up, I do this first thing, and then I'm
Mhm.
locked and loaded for the rest of the day. And then I hit the weekend, and it's like I get up and I don't do anything productive in the morning, and I'm just taking my time and I'm playing on my phone and I'm doing my things, and like it has an impact on my motivation to be productive for the rest of the day. Now, sometimes what I do is on a Saturday is like I'll hit it like too hard, right? I'll get up and I'll be super productive in the morning and stuff, and then I'm just like a neurotic head case for the rest of like the weekend because like I'm in like let's get stuff done mode,
Uh,
and the rest of the family is like, who are you? Normally you're
yeah.
like exhausted and not productive
Yes.
at all on the weekends.
Please don't ruin our weekend.
Yeah,
Essentially.
exactly. Yeah, and I'm like, you guys want to go for a walk? And I'm like stroking on like like the heavy rock with all the
Rough
weights in
packs
it.
and
Yeah.
you got like weighted shoes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. It's funny how pace makes that difference, but that's definitely one of the big things this year that I'm trying to become actually more small mountain like, right? Is that the amount of consistency in the boring disciplines are
Yeah.
the ones that you talk about and that I do some of them consistently, but I've just added a few more on this year of just boring
Yeah.
things that are great.
And there are like I think we all have blind spots around this stuff, right? I like there are boring things that I should be doing a lot more regularly and be better at than I actually am because like I'm looking at the shiny thing of those habits. Well, I want this thing. Well, you got to come over here and build the foundational stuff. I don't need that. It's going to be fine. And then, you spin your wheels and then you realize, oh, maybe I do need these foundational, bricks. And then you go
Hmm.
back and get them.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
Yep. Do the work, deep work, do
deep
hard
work.
things, all those different things.
Man, so it has been what, like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 weeks since we've done a live show.
Yes, one of those.
Yeah. So we had Christmas
Yep.
and kids out of school. And so we missed a week there. And I think we missed a week after that. Man, so let's back up a little bit. How was Christmas? How was the holidays with the family?
It was very chill. It was a very chill
Yeah.
year. Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot. Trying to think because it feels like it's been forever now
I
since
know. Yeah.
it's Christmas. Yeah, I mean, we didn't. Our families are in town, and we didn't do a ton of traveling on the day of.
Hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, I mean, it was very chill, and I got to go see my parents too. And yeah, not a lot. And then New Year's, I didn't do a heck of a lot either.
Hmm.
Kind of spent it in and celebrated, but didn't do a whole lot. So pretty
Nice.
boring, but I loved it. How about you?
Was this the first holiday with the girlfriend?
It was.
Nice. Any
Yeah.
cool new traditions or anything pop up was on that front?
Traditions, no, I wouldn't say traditions per se, because I think we both share kind of the we just want holidays to be like chill and laid back, not
Hmm.
like some sort of big like we have to go these places and do these 9 things and
Yeah.
yeah. So we're actually kind of quite the opposite in that let's cook, let's make a nice big spread. Let's cook, right?
Hmm.
And do something like that, and that's we invite who wants to come. If they can come, they can come. Like
Nice.
that
Okay.
sort of thing. So maybe something like that. Maybe we'll come up with like some sort of Christmas cooking tradition where we invite people over to try our stuff, and that'll be our Christmas thing. But who
Yeah.
knows?
That could be cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it might be fun. Yep. So, but yeah, nothing like that. And then, uh, I mean, as the kids are getting older, that has changed a bit. The pace of things and
Yes.
requirement of
Absolutely.
things. And it's been a couple of years since it was like all out Christmas madness where they're like shredding through presents Christmas morning. But they're like 14 and 17 now. It's
Yeah.
like, Dad, like I think I put a picture up from 11 years ago with my kids, and they're sitting in bed, and they're both little tiny and have these little baby like children's books, and it says "Waiting for Mom to wake up for Christmas," right? And it's like 11 o'clock, and they're still asleep on Christmas Day.
Oh wow.
It's like
Okay.
they're like, "Oh yeah, Christmas is awesome."
That is
You know?
crazy. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, but it was fun and bigger presents. Like
Yeah.
but son's a musician, so it's like we got him a mic stand and like a cool new 2 sets of mics for his recording.
Mhm.
We got an instrument mic and a new kind of voice mic setup and stuff
Oh,
like that.
yeah.
So
You have a whole new batch of recording gear to get because you have it for all like the live streaming stuff and everything.
it's
Now
different.
you're going to do the music thing.
It's different. Yeah. Yeah. He wants the Shure mics. He doesn't want like the
Oh, of
cool,
course he does. Yeah, yeah, of course he
all
does.
that stuff. Yeah. So
Absolutely. Interesting.
Sweetwater fan now.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. Did you
Yeah.
get any especially cool gifts?
I mean, standard stuff.
Standard stuff?
Like the joke that like when older you get, the more you appreciate like the socks and like the
Oh, yeah,
comfy
for real.
hoodie and like that's what I got. I got cool clothes and I got mostly like gift cards for my friends.
Oh,
But like
nice.
thoughtful gift cards, but not like, I got a Crumble gift card,
Oh,
a buddy of mine. So,
I've not had
like
Crumble, but I've had the other delivery service, and they
yes,
are epic. Dang.
same. It's indulgent like madness. So, yeah.
So we had this whirlwind of a holiday. So my niece came into town. So my sister and her partner and kids live up in St. Louis. And so my niece is 17. So her and her boyfriend took a bus down here to hang out. And so they were
Oh
here
wow.
for a while. We got to hang out with them. Hadn't seen her in a handful of years, and she's like a full-fledged adult now. That is very odd and interesting. Um, and then normally we have Christmas Day. We hang out with Melissa's family, then we go hang out with my family. Well, Melissa's sister had COVID, so we couldn't go hang out with them. So we didn't. So we pushed New Year's we pushed Christmas on Melissa's side to New Year's. So Christmas Day we didn't do anything because like on Christmas Eve we went to my mom's house. A very interesting story about that here in a second. So we do New Year's with her family. So like the whole holiday felt slightly off,
Mm,
right? Because like Christmas didn't feel like Christmas because it wasn't really the day, and New Year's didn't feel like anything. New Year's felt more like Christmas Day because that's when we had it with our family and everything.
okay.
So crazy stuff. So we decided, much like you were talking about a second ago, sometimes there's pressure to go here, to go here, to go here, to go here, and we normally just tried to shove everything into one day, right?
Yeah.
Now that Alice is a little bit older, we have this new dog. We don't want the dog to be put up all day. So I asked my mom. I said, "Hey, can we come over to your house on Christmas Eve? We'll have more time with you guys. We don't have to worry about the dog, blah, blah, blah." And my mom was like, "Yeah, sure." So Christmas Eve, I go to my mom's house, and I'm just expecting my mom, her partner, and the people who live in that household, right? There's two other people who live there. So there's another vehicle in there in the driveway. So I'm like, okay, this is interesting. So I go in, and I had forgotten about this, but my mom's partner, Lavana, is connected to a woman that I used to work with at the bank that I worked at after the bank that you and I worked together, right?
Right. Yeah.
So,
Uh,
okay, this is the weirdness of real introvert John. Okay, so I go into my mom's house expecting to see nobody else other than my mom and my family, and this woman is here who I have really not seen since Alice was an infant, and now my daughter's 11. So like I'm in this weird kind of like cognitive space of really appreciating how long it's been since I've seen this woman. Why is this woman in my mom's house? Like, and I just kind of like shut down socially because I'm just like kind of weirded out by the whole thing. And we left, and Melissa was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think so." And she was like, "You were weird." And I was like, "I was a little weird. Like I felt like a person out of time almost throughout
mm,
the
mhm.
the entire like conversation." And she was like, "Do you still work for yourself?" And I was like, "Yes." Like
You take this guy anywhere. What's going on?
I was so awkward,
You
man.
can't be my
It
time travel
was
buddy, John. I'm sorry.
it was crazy, and I worked with this one for I think like a year, right?
Mhm.
Instead of a branch. Her name's Erica, super nice person. And we just kind of gone our own ways, but I was just that what actually happened was not aligned with my expectations in such a profound way that I didn't know what to do with myself, right?
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
like how my weird, awkward introversion stuff kind of shows up.
Yeah.
So that was very interesting.
Wait,
Upgraded.
but how did why was she there? Like, how did she know?
So my mom's partner is a woman named Lavana. My mom is
Right.
gay, and Lavana, her sister was married to a man who knows this woman. Is my understanding of it.
Okay.
It's kind of uncomfortable to go ask now because I think this is one of the things I'm supposed to
Oh,
know.
you didn't
So
ask. Okay. Okay.
yeah,
Okay. So she was there, and you're not exactly sure why, other than there's connection to
yeah,
it.
no, she's
Relation.
connected to the family, right? And Lavana had just lost her sister, so like
Oh, I didn't hear that. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I didn't mention that part, but yeah. So
Gotcha.
that
Okay.
was
That makes more sense.
Yeah, very, very odd, right? And so all these people who were like, "Oh, John, you're not an introvert. I see you on camera all the time." No, I'm a weird social weirdo. Like, I have my moments for sure.
Yes, he has been trained well by someone somewhere in his life to be a good social person, and so he can fool lots of people.
Yeah, but like you throw a monkey
Time
wrench into
limit.
the gears,
Yeah, that's right. You throw a
it's gonna
wrench or a
break
time
some
limit
things.
on it, thing comes unbundled, man.
So I wanted to share that because like I don't have many areas where my like weird introversion awkwardness shows up, but that was one of them that I thought was worth sharing. I
Mhm.
upgraded all of my tech.
Cool.
So
Nice.
and I overbought, right,
Yeah.
which I think is something that is super easy for like entrepreneurs and sellers to do because like it's like, well, I'll just go sell more kind of deal. And
Right.
so I had a MacBook Pro. I was going to get another MacBook Pro, and because I run three monitors, one, two, and
Mhm.
three. Well, you can't run an Air and have three monitors unless you're running a dock or something else. So I'm in the Apple Store. My old one, the battery's kind of like swelling a little bit, so they need to replace that. So they're going to take my machine for 3 to 5 days, and I'm like, cool, I need a machine. So I buy the Pro, and as soon as I walk out the store with it, I have buyer's remorse. Soon as I walk out of the store, and I was like,
Really?
oh man, I don't know that this was the right option. Maybe I should have thought about this a little bit more.
Interesting.
And so I bought like the $2,100 one, and I had it for like a day, and then I was like, well, maybe I don't need three machines, or I'm sorry, maybe I don't need three monitors, maybe because I am working on my focus, and having three monitors is just three opportunities for things to like hijack my focus and pull me off track,
Oh, yeah.
and maybe there's a workaround. And so sure enough, there was. So I get a MacBook Air that's a refurb with some updated specs and everything. So like I have a
Dang.
new M2 Air, MacBook Air that's a refurb,
Okay.
and so I returned the Pro, right? Because I there's a lot of people who are like just buy the best you can possibly afford and just make do. I think there's a sweet spot there
Yeah,
with that kind of stuff that people don't really talk about.
for
So
sure.
I took that back, and then I was like, well, we should just do the phone switch
Hmm.
as well. So
Okay.
I
How'd
bought
you
an
do that?
iPhone. I'm back in blue bubble territory. I've moved away from the Pixel. I am now back on iPhone. And let me talk about why that is very interesting, because a house divided is
Oh, yeah. That's the reason.
there are so many small little bitty things that just suck being the only person with Android in the house. And I have a work trip coming up this weekend. I'm going to Dubai, which is going to be really, really, really cool. I've never been out of the country before. And being able to just like effortlessly use FaceTime to talk to my family and have
Right.
Wi Fi messaging and calling and stuff like that. I don't have to worry about any kind of international roaming or data packs or anything else like that.
Yeah.
So that all just made sense. So far, I'm still walking around with both of these phones because I'm not just doing the thing where I'm going to copy all my phones or all of
Mhm.
my apps. Good morning, Mike,
Hey,
and
Mike.
move them over to the iPhone because I don't want to have those same habits and patterns with my new phone. And I see this as an opportunity to divorce myself from some of that.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
the only social I have on this new phone so far is LinkedIn.
Oh, good for you.
Only one so far. And you
Good.
know what? So far, I haven't missed anything at all.
It's crazy how that works, isn't it?
And like part of me
Same.
is a little bit nervous about my pipeline, right? Because posting and engaging and being active on social is a way for me to get business.
Mhm.
But it is amazing to have that gap.
Well, you know what I found out?
What?
Because I did that a couple years ago, backslid, year
Hmm.
ago, backslid,
Hmm.
6 months ago. So I'm on LinkedIn as well on my phone. They will actually let you post on social media on your laptop.
I
Can you
know.
believe that?
I know. And what's so weird is like that doesn't feel like a big shift, but my
Yeah.
entire like I don't browse social media on my laptop because I don't
No.
want those negative habits creeping in when I'm trying to work. So it's always been
Right.
contained in my phone, right?
Yeah.
And
It's a
then
cop out. Yeah.
I saw this article or a video actually from Tim Ferriss, and he was talking about he doesn't even have his email logged in on his phone. So if he wants to go check his email, he has to go into a browser, log into his email, and so that way he
Same.
can. And I was like, wow, I love all that friction because really, honestly, who's writing really great emails from their phone? Nobody when they're in a hurry. So, um, yeah, I've been thinking a lot about my phone because like I'm in that place of like kind of bumping into the walls with it of like,
Yeah.
and good Lord, I feel like the touch technology on Android is better than it is on Apple. Playing with both of them as I do, like it feels like a little bit tighter on Android,
Mhm. Mhm.
and the control over notifications on Android. Apple can't touch it. I know they have focus mode now, and there's some really cool things over there. It's not the same thing at all. Completely different experience.
And that's what every Android user really falls back on
For
is the
sure.
amount of control, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
On the platform in general. So,
Yep. So going
wow,
to Dubai
big.
on Saturday. So
Yeah.
this Saturday, I'm going. I'll be leaving at like 10, and I'm flying into Dubai. I'm going to be there for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I'll be back here Thursday morning local time. So I'm super
So,
excited about
is it
that.
you leaving 10 a or 10 p here?
Huh?
Are you leaving 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. here?
10 p.m. here.
Okay, yeah. I was trying to figure out the math
Yeah.
for the flight because how long is the flight?
It's long.
Well, is it straight? Or are you're
I have
stopping?
one layover. The
Oh, okay.
only direct flight is through, I think, Qatar, maybe,
Uh,
and
uh,
that was going to be like an extra $1,000 to fly
well,
direct.
okay.
So I'm flying to someplace close. Sean helped me out because Sean's made this flight many times. Sean actually lived in Yemen for a while and speaks
Okay.
Arabic.
Oh, well,
So like pretty legit
cool.
dude. Gave me some really good tips. So that is
Nice.
going on. So after this show, today I have to go to Dallas to the passport agency because they're doing like one of these expedited things since my
Okay,
travel
that's
is
big,
less
huh?
than 2 weeks. So got a whole big packet of information to go through with them today, and yeah, it's going to be
Nice.
exciting.
I didn't even think about the passport. Yeah. Like you don't leave
Yeah,
your house. Why would you have a passport to leave the country? Like,
yeah. I've never had a passport before,
how does it work?
which is like kind of crazy. Yeah,
Right. Especially, I was just kind of thinking from the army side too. Like, never leaving the country, never having a
never
passport.
left the
Like,
country.
on my day.
Never.
Yeah.
When I joined the reserves, right? It was just, we were in a peacetime at
Right.
the time, and so then 9/11 happens, and we were on alert but never had to deploy because my unit was so there were so many sections to the unit. It just made more sense to like activate active duty people who had the same job and apply
Sure.
them to these jobs when there were holes.
Sure.
So yeah, never deployed. There. I tell this story about the first year of being in the reserves. They were like, okay, our annual training this year is going to be in Japan. Don't you guys want to go to Japan? So everyone signs up, right? Of
Yeah.
course, like pre, during,
Right.
after cleanup because it's Japan. Everyone wants to go to Japan.
Sure.
And then they're like, oh, hey guys, sorry, Japan is not happening. We're going to Fort Polk, Louisiana, right? And
Wow.
everyone just felt so bait and switched, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone had signed up for this like amazing experience, and then we go to the armpit of Louisiana, Fort Polk, and yeah, it was less than a deal. Less than a deal.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting, man. Leaving the country is exciting, period. So
Yeah,
Dubai will be a great first experience, I hope, for you.
man, I'm stoked, and it's a financial conference, right?
Yeah.
So I had to go get some wardrobe accessories for this kind
Oh,
of thing
yeah.
because normally I'm hanging out just like in a t-shirt and like athleisure pants,
Right.
and I was like, hey, is this like a jeans and t-shirt kind of thing? And Sean goes, no, dummy, this is a bunch of financial people. You're gonna need to like look a little bit nicer. And I was like, suits?
Yes.
And he goes, really nice slacks if you're not going to wear a suit. And I was like, okay. So I had to go buy some kit because I've not had to run in those circles in many years. So I've got some
Yeah.
I've got some fancy new threads, Jake.
Dude. Wow. It's a big year for you.
Already, and it's like the third.
You were
What's today?
crushing. It's January 9th, and you've like knocked off bucket list items.
Yeah.
That's greatness. I did actually. So I had a funeral. My grandma died
Oh man,
a
I'm
week or
sorry.
so, week and a half ago, but she was 93, 92, 93. So it was,
Oh wow.
I was happy because she was suffering, happy
Okay.
for her.
It's time.
But yeah, I had not worn a suit in I'm not sure how long. And I was a pallbearer, so I had to show up.
Yeah.
So I did make do, but I did have to go buy a new piece because I was like, I just don't have anything that's
Okay. Do you remember back in the day, right, at Chase?
Mhm.
Let's talk about the absurdity of Chase, right? And some of the stupid things that people really thought.
How much time do we have?
Do we have enough time?
Yeah.
So
Cancel my meetings.
I remember being excited at Chase because they give you an allowance to buy clothes from the Lands' End store, right? And so you
Yep.
can buy the Chase shirts and the Chase ties, and the
Yes.
Chase ties begin to like evaporate the minute they arrive at your doorstep. That's how bad the threat is on these things.
Yeah.
And so we're wearing these things, and then we got this new manager. His name, I believe his name was Justin Thornburg, right? And he was a
Hmm.
big suit guy. And then all of a sudden, the expectation was the shirt and tie are not enough. You either need to wear a suit jacket or a sweater
Uh-huh.
over it
Yeah.
to be in the standard.
Yep.
And we were all furious, right? You
Yeah.
remember this because it's Texas and it
Yep.
was the summer and it was like over 100 degrees every day, and you're just telling us that wearing a jacket or a sweater is necessary because it's going to help us close more deals.
Right.
You remember Casey trying to like, well,
Yeah.
guys, you're going to look so much more professional this way. The deals are going to be easier to do.
The respect level's going up a notch for y'all. Like,
Yeah, exactly right.
yeah. When I
Oh,
was managing at the Gaylord Texan,
mhm,
as part of my kind of side hustle stuff going on, it's the home company who handles all the parking across the entire stuff, the parking lots, the valet,
mhm,
all the different stuff, right? It's the company I actually worked for. They were in Pennsylvania, and they made uniform changes in June, and it was these really thick, nasty long sleeve shirts that were just with vests
oh God.
in Texas. And so we were so pissed that for the first 3 days, all we did was take pictures of just pitted out, like back sweat, like just drenched, and how bad we looked, and sent them to corporate. And within 10 days, they rescinded. They said, okay, everyone but Texas has to switch to it was corporate's ridiculous sometimes, man. It's just
Well, I mean,
zero thought.
the further away you are from being like on the ground, the more likely it is that you're going to make a bad decision. Like I worked for a company and they were trying to say uh it was a community driven thing and they wanted like study groups, right? Because this was an adult learning kind of
Hmm.
role. And so they were like, cool, you can have one event per week. It needs to be over in Dallas and everyone should come over. And then they were like, hey, the people from Fort Worth aren't going over to Dallas. And I was like, yeah, people from Fort Worth don't go to Dallas. And they were like, yeah, I know, but you need to get the people from Fort Worth over to Dallas. So I'm like, you don't understand the culture of how the city works.
They
Like,
don't. No.
I am more than willing to have a secondary event on the Fort Worth side, so that way it's accessible to the Fort Worth people. But Fort Worth people don't drive to Dallas except for shows and family stuff. That's it. Like
Yeah.
360 is the dividing line, right? And the closer you are to 360, the more willing you are to cross it. But like if you're far away
Even
from
then,
it, you don't go across 360 for anything, you know?
no.
And they just didn't understand this. And they were like, well, we just think this is doable. And I'm like, show me how. I mean, I'm willing to try it, but I'm telling you that is not going to work in the city. And it was just they're not from here. They don't live here. They've never been here. Why would they get it?
Reminds me of this, right?
Oh, okay. How was that?
I just started this, and what you said. Well, it's good so far. I'm only like 2 chapters in, but the whole thing is about customer indecision,
Hmm.
and it's about understanding that there's more than one type of customer indecision. It's not just
Oh, yeah.
we don't like
Hmm.
your stuff, or we don't see the value yet.
Yep.
Oh, they're pitching that the bigger, and they have the stats to prove it. So I believe them. It's the same people that did Challenger Sale, Challenger Customer,
Yeah.
right? Is that people would rather, and you probably talk about this in role playing too, is people would rather um, have screw up by omission than commission. So they would rather not take an action and then, whoops, we didn't get what we needed or we didn't grow,
Hmm.
versus to take an action and be responsible and then it not work.
Yeah.
So that they're saying that it's about 60-40 when people are stuck. It's the 60, not that you didn't show them and do a great job.
Yeah.
It's that they just are so stuck on, if this doesn't work for me for some reason, I'm to blame. I'd
Yep.
rather just not make the decision.
Absolutely.
So so when you said,
Yeah. And that happens all the time, right? Because you look at how many deals stall because you have, right? And this is like a well-known ploy tactic, well, whatever you want to call it, but cultivating of champions, right? So you find someone who's like one of the users who's going to have the most pain around not using your software, right? And you make a relationship with them, you take them to a demo, but at some point you have to I mean, there's a metaphor here, right? The same thing between I can't make a prospect sign sign the paperwork and pay the bill. I can't make a champion go in and give an amazing discussion about why their organization needs this thing because of their needs. So there's still this moment where we have to take our hands off the wheel and trust that we've done a good job of empowering the other person to feel comfortable and do what they need to do. But if you can't get that champion comfortable, they're not going to go sell it for you, right? If you don't really take the time to understand that champion's situation, like where do they fit in the organization, how are they viewed, all these other things, you're not going to you're going to run into that more than you don't. And there is a huge difference between someone who's just indecisive because they can't make up a decision or because they can't make up their mind, and someone who's in a situation to where like they don't feel like they have the leadership capital to push this up the hill necessary, right? And both of those things are different than just status quo thinking of like, oh, I don't think we need this kind of situation.
Right.
You have to and all of this is depth of discovery stuff, right? Because the same salesperson could run the same call, right, and uncover that information, or just miss it completely because they don't question to that depth.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and I think one of the major hurdles this past year that I've kind of worked myself through is understanding that what needs to be accomplished in the call, right, and then getting the reps to make sure that you're doing it correctly. But then once you've got all that down, if you're not listening to the person or asking questions to really understand how they feel about the answer they just gave, then you're not a professional salesperson. You're someone who's good at scripts. Even if it doesn't feel scripty and it's a good conversation points and you've figured out a formula or a framework from a book that you like that works for you sometimes, you still aren't a pro until you can actually understand where people are at.
And the first question in that, like, if you're doing really great discovery, right, around like emotional topics and you're uncovering pain and gaps and motivations, you have to understand that you're drawing that person into a conversation that is deeper than most other conversations that they're in. And they're thinking about themselves, right? That whole thing of what's in it for me is not something that selfish people do and other people don't. This is something that everybody does. So if you draw someone into a really, really great conversation about where they're struggling in their role and what's keeping them from performing at the highest level, they're only thinking about themselves, right? And if you just let that person go away without asking a question like, hey, what do you think is going to happen when you take this back and tell the rest of the team about this? Now they're, oh my God, wow, absolutely. I am going to have to go talk to my whole team about this. Well, and then you can have a conversation about what that other conversation is going to be like, the one that you can't be part of. But until you ask those questions and you force them to zoom out and look at it in that way, they're not prepared to go have that conversation. They're going to show up and they're going to feature dump, just like every bad salesperson feature dumps. There's no question.
Yeah, they become the bad salesperson.
Exactly right. Absolutely. And so that's why I'm always like, do you want to deputize them, or do you want to be part of the process?
Yeah, right? and you don't get to pick all the time.
You do not get to pick all the time. No.
Yeah, I mean you can try, but you just don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
man, dude. We've not chatted in a while about this stuff. Like, I feel like I've got a lot in the hopper.
You do. Per always. We both do. That's how we run our engines, right? Our locomotives are always running.
Yeah.
So
you want to talk about the big thing?
Yeah, for sure. We're excuse me, we're big fans of podcasts.
Big fans of podcasts.
We've been doing it for a while, separately and together. And this one's been probably one of the most fun ones for sure that we've done, at least for me. But we, what happens at the end of the year is we assess our last year, we look at our new goals, we decide what's working, what's not working, where we can make changes. And so we're making changes to this one. And we mentioned, right, is the rebrand. Yeah, exactly, Mike, the rebrand. But John, let's talk a little bit about what we talked about on Slack, right? I mean, just discuss kind of some of the things. We talked about the rebrand. We started there. And we're like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah. So Jake and I are shiny thing people, right? We'll get very excited about something. And so we've had the show for a while. We ended it. Some people were asking us about it, so we decided to bring it back. And ever since we brought it back, it's like, man, what can we do with this thing? How can we do more with this thing? And one of the things we're talking about is a rebrand, the addition of a podcast to this thing. And we were very excited about the concept of doing more work, more effort, and I was feeling some friction, like it was feeling like a first rep to me, which it shouldn't be, because I've got lots of reps of doing this kind of show. And the thing that I would love to point out is that Jake was aware of my friction, even though like I wasn't fully aware that I was moving at a pace that is slower than normal, right? And so he realizes it, and he calls it out. We have a quick conversation, and then I feel better. And then, I've just been busy, right? Jake has been busy. You're always going to be busy, which is like a super important part of my thinking about this, because like some things should be a little bit easier to start, right? If there's this much friction, what is going on?
Mhm.
And Jake, because he's amazing, was like, hey, here's what I need this show to be for me. For me to sink this much time and effort and bandwidth into it, it needs to do these things.
Mhm.
And that was where the friction was, right, for us. And because that didn't really line up with what I was needing the show to do, but I know myself well enough to know that if it leads to leads for one of us, and I'm
Mhm.
over here, or if it was flipped, if I was getting leads and Jake wasn't, the other person at some level is going to feel slighted. It's not going to be a good fit. It's not going to be a good use of time.
Yeah.
So we were kind of talking about the show and what it needs to do for us, and that was where we found out, hey, like this isn't really align for
Mhm.
like what my needs and his needs are. And then also, it doesn't really seem like from like a hypothesis perspective that we can build one show that's going to generate leads for both of us in different lanes. So as opposed to trying to figure it out, because Jake and I will spend forever, well, what if we did this, what if we did this, what if we did this, right?
Suckers for that.
Seeing that shiny thing,
Yeah.
hello, seeing that shiny thing, realizing it for what it is, realizing that because I love Jake as much as I do, we could spend forever talking about, okay, here's the perfect plan, here's the perfect process, and never actually get a rep done.
Yeah.
So, feeling all this, we had a conversation. I decided to kind of break the ice about like ending the show, and so I felt very uncomfortable about typing all this out. So I sent him a video to kind of make sure that the tone was good and that I wasn't misinterpreted. He sent me a message back, and lo and behold, we're on the same page, right? This has got to be what it needs to be for us because we're both busy. We're both kind of at capacity. So if this isn't that thing, it's just going to be a frustration. So
Right.
I
Yeah.
figure, so we talked it out and we decided this is it.
This is it. This
This
is
is
the one
it.
right here.
This is it.
Yep.
This is the one. So,
Yep. But first of all, thanks for the compliment. Really appreciate that.
dude,
Very
I've
cool.
been thinking about that since it happened, right? Because
Mhm.
like I'm moving slow, like, but I have so many other things going on with the Dubai trip and projects and everything else like that. It's not really registering to me that I've got my brakes on and I don't know why, And so then
Mhm.
when you called it out and you're like, hey, can we have a call? And I felt better after the call. Like I've been thinking about that since then, right? So all these leaders who were like, hey, you can't have a close connection with your team in a remote environment is obviously wrong,
Right.
right? Because Jake isn't my boss. We're just really good friends and have worked together for a long time. But he knew, even in a remote environment, even when I was telling him, hey, man, I'm just busy, that something else was going on, was able to call it out. That next level, man, honestly,
Yeah. Awesome.
phenomenal.
That's cool. Well, I really appreciate you being willing to, it's like the whole self-deception, leadership and self-deception is what it
Hmm.
reminded me of, is you being willing to say, you know what, I am in this place and thank you for calling it out. And here's what I'm thinking. And to me, that's what a real leader does, is they accept whatever situation they're in for what it is. And then we make adjustments and have healthy conversations. So
Yeah.
compliment right back to you for being willing right away to go, yeah, let's talk about this. And then you're the one that broke the ice on ending the show, and right? And you probably, I don't know how much you read into it, because you subconsciously probably just do this, right? Like me being more of the I and wanting things to keep going for relationship standpoint, you said, well, maybe this isn't the right time. Now. This isn't the fit. We should just end this thing.
Hmm.
And it would have taken me probably longer to get there. But a strength of your personality.
I mean, it's very much that whole visionary integrator kind of situation. Hey, does this work? Well, let's give it to the person who is like manually turning the gears and not the person with the idea, because these are
Right.
different thought processes,
Right.
So it felt very, very much like visionary's got a great idea. Hey, let's do this thing. Okay, how are we going to do that? Oh, well, I don't know. That's your job. Okay, well, what if we can't figure it out? Kind of situation.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
thank you,
Exactly.
man.
So this is it for Morning Bill. Now, John and I always find a way to do things together. So something else will pop up at some point, I'm sure.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
we're going to sunset this one and call it a good piece of work. It was
Yeah,
fun and
absolutely.
lots of learnings and lots of cool connections and lots of cool interviews. And a lot of great things about it. So
Yeah, absolutely. And we've had some people who have been, I'm going to use the word stalwart.
hmm,
Great word,
good one.
right? Stalwart fans of the show. They've been hanging out with us more or less consistently. Mike Tao being,
Mr.
the
Consistent.
chief among those. Yeah, Mr. Consistency, Michelle, Dylan.
Mhm.
We've had lots of people come in and hang out with us and stuff. And then we
Yep.
have a bunch of lurkers, right? A bunch of people who, I've gotten DMs from people, right?
Yep.
And I've had some people be like, "Hey, I don't know really what you're talking about on this show, but I'll like have it on in the background,"
Yeah, my
which is
girlfriend does that.
huge, right? And some
She's
people have had some amazing transformations over like listening to us talk about goal setting and goal achievement and being productive and stuff like that. So, I think looking back at the show, right, it's a win if one person comes out of the process differently, and I think more than one person has. So,
yeah, so it's absolutely a win. It already has been, and I'm very proud of the time we've spent. So
you know, if you create content, it's one of those things to where you don't it's super easy to not know if you're doing a good job or not, right?
mhm.
Because everyone's creating content of some way, of some ilk, right? So the
Feels
world
that
is
way.
flooded with it,
Yeah.
and to be in a spot to where you do something and then you wrap it up and people come ask you to bring it back is pretty
Yeah.
cool and pretty rare. And that's what happened with this thing here, right? Is that people asked us to bring it back. So some of this is like a weird piece of advice, but some people you just have to stay in the game and create long enough to build something that someone does tell you to bring back, right? So try new ideas and get uncomfortable and push yourself.
Dude, I've seen more YouTube videos in the last year around building a brand around YouTube, stuff like that, where they have been like, I have, I've been shooting videos for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years,
Yeah,
8 years. Now I make money,
yeah,
and it's like and it's just so cool and refreshing to see that many people go, I just had to start creating and I had to keep creating. And then finally, I kind of figured out what worked for me, from
yeah.
what to create, when to create it, how to present it, what to offer, things like that. So it really is, content is a long game, but
Very
sure is a
long
fun
game.
one if you
Yeah.
let it.
Well, if you take some of the, and that's part of the lesson here as well, is that if Jake and I had gone, guys, we were actually working with graphic designers to get logos for this for this new direction of the show. Like
Right.
that's how far down the path we were. But let's
Yeah.
be honest about it, right? Like I know myself, I know Jake, right? We're both very busy. If we're putting effort behind a thing that's supposed to be revenue generating for us, that's going to take it to a whole other level of
Yep.
tension, and maybe it becomes less fun. There's all these things to take into consideration. So
Mhm.
this is where the self-awareness comes into situation. I can say, you know what, I'm totally fine if we do a show and I don't get any leads from it. But if Jake is getting leads and I am not, that's going to chafe on
That's good.
some timeline,
Yeah.
right? It might be 10 years, it could be 1 year, but eventually it's going to like start to like eat at me a little bit. So
Yeah.
as opposed to putting myself into that situation hoping that doesn't show up, don't hope, right? It's not a great strategy. I know that it will. So address it. Jake, I've got a big concern about this. Can we talk about it?
Yeah.
Sure. And so we
Yeah.
did,
Yeah.
which I think is just super important. Like, can't hope. You got to know. You have to know yourself well enough to like, okay, is this going to eat at me? Is this going to bother me? Does this even make sense? And if not, you have to put this stuff down because, like Jake said, we could have spent an extra 3 or 4 months like gleefully happy about this new project and not getting any momentum on it. It would have been
Right.
very easy to do.
Yep.
So,
Yep. We've done it.
yeah, actually, yeah, like three
In fact,
times
we did
now.
one. You mentioned it quite a few times. You've mentioned it though. I forget what the podcast was called, that went, we spun up and then just never actually started. But
Yeah,
that
the very first creative thing we tried to do together was this like podcast idea that I wanted to do, but I didn't really feel comfortable being the host by myself, and so I reached out to Jake and was like, "Hey, I have this idea. I want to call it Pivot Mountain, and I
Yep.
want to call it, and I want to interview business leaders who started their business thinking it was going to be one thing and then had to pivot it so that way, like, you could find product market fit." And we interviewed one person and realized this is going to be such a hard thing to find guests for that
Mm.
it just doesn't make any sense. So we didn't have the scheduled conversation of like, okay, cool, this isn't working. You have a lot of friction. It just fell apart. The wheels just fell off. Like
Like,
we have one episode. I have it on a machine somewhere. I
yeah.
went out and bought an 8-track mixer for this experiment, guys.
Yes.
Like that's
Yeah.
how long ago this was.
Classic John.
And I still have it actually because like in the back of my head I'm like, one day there will be a project where I'm going to need an 8-channel mixer. No, there's
Dude,
never going to be a time where I'm
that
going
thing's
to
going
need
to
an
turn into
8-channel
art,
mixer.
is what that thing's going to turn into.
Exactly.
Art
Eventually it'll
Deco.
be so old, I'm going to have to paint it and like hang it on the wall.
Grandpa, what's that?
But, like we have been working on this kind of stuff for a very long time now, which is crazy to think about because, I just think about like the smoothness of Bill without thinking about the,
Oh.
the train wreck of Pivot Mountain.
Well, we split. I think I left Chase first, right? Or did you? I can't remember.
I left Chase.
Compass.
Yeah, I left Chase. I went to Compass.
That's right.
And
then
then
I stuck another 6 months at Chase. I think I switched locations.
Like
Yeah.
You switched locations because it was much closer to home.
Yeah, that's what I did. And I stuck with that another 6 or 7 months. And then, but that anyway, we split, and that split has been like 10 years ago.
Yeah, Alice wasn't born yet.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it was 2011, 2012 when that happened. And we were in, I mean, we've told this before, maybe this is a great kind of full circle moment, right? It's at the very beginning of this show when we started Morning Bill, we talked about, I was just a little ahead of John on the entrepreneurial path because I'm older and I got fed up with the workplace in general. And I was like, all right, I'm side hustling, screw this. And
no one was even talking about side hustles at the time. Like it wasn't a thing.
Like 2009, I was side hustling, right?
Yeah, because we were all standing in the Chase branch. It was you, me, and Chris, right? And you were talking about your affiliate marketing stuff, right? And I was kind of like, what are these? Is this legal? Affiliates? Like I had no idea. It's crazy.
Yeah. I was writing blogs and getting affiliate commissions on people selling coffee beans. That's where I started. Mm-hmm. So I would write blogs about coffee beans, and then if they would buy through my website, I would get a piece of a purchase. And so that's where I started. And and you and I just started talking about stuff, and like it was instant. Like we made that connection there, and then the friendship built. But so we have been talking about business
for over a decade.
For over a decade. And then, so it took 4 or 5 years before we even talked about Pivot Mountain. Pivot Mountain came up, but we talked about little projects we could possibly maybe do, but nothing serious. So it took like 4 or 5 years to even breach that. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it takes a while sometimes.
Yeah, man, that was such a long time ago. It feels like, right? Especially when we look at the tech used to get the job done, right? Because here we're like live streaming over video, which is like one piece of tech that costs with like a monthly premium. Now you got to buy some kit to like look good and sound good and stuff. But compared to before, like I had an 8-channel mixer because I wanted a mix minus setup so I could do, the tech has made such huge advancements rather quickly that it does make all this stuff a lot easier. But the thing that everyone forgets about is the time it takes to still get it done on a regular basis, right? And the bandwidth it's going to pull from you. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then, Chat GPT took over the world and everything was easy.
It is so hilarious because I run into these situations to where my feeds couldn't be more diverse, right? So like on Facebook, everyone is talking about how Chat GTP is going to like take over the world, and like Google is done, and like copywriting is done, dead, everything else. And then I go over on LinkedIn, and everyone is like, "Have you guys seen the terrible output of this tool?
Yes.
You couldn't get two groups of people to talk as polarizingly different about one piece of tech as is currently going on with Chat GTP."
Promising though, because LinkedIn still does have a brain. Like people were oh no, it's becoming Twitter. Oh no, it's like clearly Facebook's for the layperson who's just hearing about the thing. Mm-hmm. And then LinkedIn is still more locked in and like, okay, let's go try this. Let's talk about it together. Yep. So that's promising.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen some interesting use cases for it as far as, especially copywriters being able to shorten their learning curve around like topics. Not like you still got to find an angle and find all that connective tissue. Yes, absolutely, to do the job well. But can you radically shave off time on your learning curve? There's benefit to that. So I think we're a long way off from being able to just like, cool, I want an article on like lead generation, and then you run it through the thing, and then all of a sudden it's already like SEO'd and ready to go and all that stuff. Like we're still a very long way from that, but everyone is very excited about the prospect of it.
Yeah, and I think 2 years from now it will be completely different. I think 2 years from now we'll be going, dang, this is good, but not like it can replace, but still be. Because you know how it goes. I forget what the law is around growth
Well,
of.
like it's not just about like how much content you can put out and create, right? There's a quality
Sure.
metric of how many other people think that this is quality content and are linking to it, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, that's
you're still going to have relationships. You're still going to have to work on like distribution of getting like good ideas out there. The whole idea, and we operated under this not last year but the year before, was like just write it and they will come. That's a and there were so many people who were like, just create content, it's going to be fine. You're setting people up for failure
Yeah,
because
yeah,
that's not how this works.
yeah.
So
No,
chat GTP doesn't take into consideration anything about like link building or link sharing or really getting good distribution on a
not
good
yet.
piece of content.
Not yet. I think it will get to that. What it won't get to is the human element of experience and
Yeah.
layering real meaning on top of stuff. I don't know if you could ever take that away.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
so the ability to use metaphor, I think, is could potentially
Correct.
become more important, right? How is this like this, and what is that? What are the similarities? That's interesting.
Yeah, like you said, connective tissue. I think that will be a hard thing to emulate. Although, man, we can talk for days about this just because the sheer volume that they can use. I
Yeah.
think they'll be able to at some point make it look pretty similar, but it'll just feel generic somehow.
Agreed. Yeah. Like I think.
I do have one.
What'd you say?
I do have one use case where I have a client right now that's a videographer for a pretty big enterprise company, and he runs video, and he's using ChatGPT to create storyboards because he's connected to one of these AI image things. And so he asks it to do a certain thing, and then it connects to this AI image thing. And so he literally just gets images,
storyboard ideas,
the storyboards out, and it's already working for him. And he's training it right now. But essentially, he'll go, man leaning against a truck, smoking a cigarette in a cowboy hat with a West Texas background, right? And it'll throw up an image, and he won't like it. He'll go create 10 more. He'll go create 10 more. He'll pick the one he likes. Storyboard number 1. Like,
that's crazy. I like that.
Yeah. So
that's
there are
really
use
awesome
cases that are going to be really cool here in the next 6 months, I think, that pop up. But they're starting blocks, right? They get you off the line quick, which is cool.
Absolutely, man.
Yep.
What else do we want to talk about? Last show.
That's a good question. Oh, let's talk about goals.
Okay.
What are we doing this year? Right? Like, this is how our show started.
Yeah.
Keeping each other accountable, right?
So, well, okay. So one thing, right, that I need to kind of talk about was I did a bad thing last year and set an ego goal, right? I set this dollar amount that I wanted to sell of, a more than I'd ever sold before. And I was like, okay, this is going to be fine. And it was in that moment of ego that it seemed like a good goal. It wasn't a good goal because I didn't really have a path to hit that dollar amount, right? Which means that it's not a good goal. And so I had this moment at the end of the year of being like mad because I'd sold well. I sold more than I'd ever sold, but it wasn't the dollar amount that I wanted. And I was just mad at myself for not hitting the goal. I should be a little bit happy about the idea that I sold more than I ever have about a product that I've created and, all these other nice little things. But it's just super easy to lean into, I didn't hit the goal kind of situation. Now, part of that, like, it shouldn't have been a goal that I was working towards anyway because I didn't have clarity on it. I didn't like it was a bad goal from the start. But this leads to a thing that Cialdini talks about all the time: commitment, consistency. The things we tell ourselves, we're kind of like tying ourselves down to these things, right? So I was a little bit irritated about that, and then kind of had to zoom out and realize that,
you still sold well and did more than you ever.
I still sold well and did more than I ever have.
Yeah.
And the comparison game here really kind of like shows up because it's the end of the year. I'm seeing all these other sellers and entrepreneurs kind of brag about, their numbers and what their organizations are done. And then I kind of had to pause for a second. And this is going to feel weird, but I'm like, why am I comparing myself to all these other people? Right? There are lots of sellers who are better than me, but they're not selling their own product or service. So we're not on the same level. Sorry. This doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And there were lots of entrepreneurs who have run much bigger organizations than I have who don't have to do prospecting, qualifying, and closing and servicing the own accounts that they close. So once again, we're not on the same level. So if I'm going to compare myself to anybody's numbers, they need to be solopreneur consultant coaches who have a small team but are still doing most of the delivery themselves. I'm probably outperforming the majority of those people.
Yeah.
So like the real comparison matters, right? And social media is not the place to go like look for your comparisons, which is
No.
which is another thing that I'm realizing how much that was like impacting my view and vision, because I was on social media so much, like, posting and looking for business. This kind of time away has been helpful in many ways. So that's
So
been interesting.
I know I think most people know, at least if they listen to the show at all, that you like stoicism. It's a
Hmm.
big part of kind of operating system for you, right? Like,
Yeah,
um,
huge.
yeah. And so, I'm reading quite a bit more stoicism stuff too. And so
Hmm.
I've least kind of mapping some of these concepts for myself. In that, one of the big sayings, it's not stoicism, but it's like you versus you. Or like
Hmm.
you're the only comparison, actually.
Yeah.
There isn't really anybody else you can chart against. And then the ability to detach from the outcome. Obviously, you have to find an outcome and you need to head towards something so that you're taking steps in the right direction. But then that's it. Like
Yeah.
now it's the process. Like I'm
Now it's the
here
process.
doing it.
Yeah.
How do you think? Because I know you've been doing this for a while. Like the Stoicism
Hmm.
philosophy is a way to look through your day. Um, that seems like and I'm not trying to poke a prod. So if
No,
like
you're
how that seems like a
you're
pretty
you're
big
my Bill. Go ahead.
miss, right? Yeah, that's a pretty big miss to have that sort of mindset, to have that big of an ego goal take you all the way through the year and you not call yourself on it. So that's the
Yeah.
big starting question I wanted to ask to get to the real question, which is you journal, you meditate, you do all these things that are supposed to bring you back
Hmm.
to be able
Yeah,
to realize that this is happening to me.
for sure.
Do you know where the miss was on that particular goal this year?
Well, okay, this brings up like kind of a couple, like an interesting tangent of a tangle of things for me, right? Because like as a stoic, I try to like look at things as they are, not how I want them to be. And I also try to think about how I react to situations versus like entitlement of like how things should be. So I've struggled a little bit with this concept of like how do you goal set well as like also trying to be a stoic, you know?
Mhm,
And what
mhm.
I've come to is there's like the whole 10x kind of situation, just 10 extra goals. So that way you're gonna be pushing, 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 pushing. And then if you hit 80%, you're gonna be way better than like the 50% goal that you hit. Cool. I think there's value in that for some people in some situations. I think if you're a stoic, I think if you're really trying to plot the amount of effort to hit those goals, I think that that is a ass backwards way of doing your goal setting,
I agree.
right? Because the smaller your organization is, the more important that forecast is,
Yes,
right?
for survival.
And a sales team, a marketing team, like their credibility is based upon saying, "Hey, we're going to hit this number and being able to hit it." Not, "Hey, we think we're going to sell 500,000, but we're going to put it at a million." So that, like, no one wants that ambiguity, right? And if you have to like goal set that high to hit to like your systems are flawed and broken is the way that I think about it, right? I've been helping my clients with their goal setting the past 2 weeks, and it's like success is the ability to envision a goal and hit it, right? So goal setting and being like goal driven and like pushing has kind of conflicted a little bit with some of my like stoic thinking of like, okay, what are you capable of? What is reasonable? Everything else. And so that has been an interesting thing for me to like try to like figure out, because I am a goal driven person. I like pushing. I like doing hard things, but I also know that the harder I push myself, if I fail, like the more uncomfortable that is. So how do we do this thing the right way? So I think last year I was coming out of a project that was not super great, and so I needed to kind of like work through some stuff. And I just don't think I was when I set that goal. I don't think I just had all my wits around me. As
Yeah.
far as the other stuff, this past year I have not journaled once. Right in 2022, I did not journal one time because I was really trying to think about and run an experiment on journaling versus meditation, like which one is the better habit for me and what do these different habits do, right? So in 2021, in 2020 I was journaling all the time, constantly.
Mhm.
And then I was struggling with like meditation, like as far as like building a consistent habit, really seeing the value of it and stuff like that. So then we got Tina, and having a puppy makes all of your routines go out the door. So getting up early and writing with just headphones on, no longer an option when you have a puppy. So last year was all about meditation, and I'm going to be writing some content around my experiences with these things because they're very different habits. I think they do very different things.
Yes.
And one of those things is showing up right here. I think if I'd been journaling about my goals and like how do I feel about them and really kind of like taking stock in a written documented format, I think I might have seen that gap in my thought sooner
Yeah.
than just like meditating on it, right? So I think that is one of these kind of big differences here, that I wasn't doing a good job of keeping my goals in front of me. So like it was just super easy to lean into the, yeah, we're gonna get there, and then not really getting there.
That's
So
interesting. So have you come to a conclusion yet on, because to me both are valuable for what you said for very different reasons. One's more of a keeping things out in front so that you don't forget, and then the other's more stepping back so that you can clear the path.
I think of one as book smarts and one of street smarts at this point, right?
Okay.
Because the practice of meditation this past year has really unlocked some very interesting things that I now have access to in my conversations and dealing with stress and being able to kind of pause, like in moments to like that whole thing of realizing that I'm the weird one when I was talking to that woman at my mom's like Christmas party comes from like realizing, hey, this feels weird. Why? And being able to like kind of reason through that process while I'm in a conversation with her comes from meditating and being able to kind of like segment my mind a little bit is kind of how I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
Journaling is much more, it's book smarts. Like, does this plan make sense and everything else like that? It's not gonna lead you to a moment of clarity in the middle of an uncomfortable conversation the way that meditating will. But just like the same way that meditating isn't going to potentially help you see the gap in your goals and the math behind your goals because you're not writing anything down. This is all just happening in your head.
Right. Like the journal's like the pop quiz so your teacher knows, hey, where are we at? Where are we at? Where are we at? Where are we at?
Yeah. But like meditating is really knowing that stuff, like when you get to the place to where like you have all your like mathematics tables like memorized and stuff like that. That's like meditating. You can just do it instantly.
Yeah.
And it's not about progressing from one to the other because, I meditated a lot last year. Like it wasn't daily, but it was probably 4 to 5 times a week on average. And so there's something about writing it down and being able to see it and work through it kind of like a math problem as opposed to, yep, I'm thinking this thing through. Yeah, this all makes sense. So
yeah,
big change.
Yeah. I agree. I think there's huge power to writing things down. And I've never been a journaler, and I tried to be, but my journaling is a lot more, I like to write things down so I don't have to remind myself to write things down and actually sit through it. I don't need a specific format, that stream of consciousness for like that actually hinders me, funny enough. And it's kind of just one of those things where I do a better job if I just let myself, when I need to, go write things down. It happens so often. I might as well have a journaling habit because, it's 3, 4, 5 days a week, every week, no matter what. And the whiteboard is the keystone for that a lot of times, because I will sit there and just write all these things down and step back and ask myself questions and then erase it and do it again. Right. And so.
Absolutely.
It depends.
Yeah. So that was kind of like an interesting realization that I didn't really do. I set the goal badly. I didn't really put myself in the best position to win because, on the other hand of it is I set this huge goal, right? More than double what I actually sold. And I still had my best year ever. And like, I had to sit down and realize that there's no way that I could sell that much without throwing out all my quality measures just completely out the window. Like that would have to be just like blatant land then expand, hope it works out, and like no real deal alignment, but like, let's just go get this money, which isn't how I sell. Like that's like blatant opposition to how I want to sell. So it, there was a lot wrong with that goal last year, and I was just kind of under the weight of it for the whole year. So the goal, some goals for this year, right, is much more, I want 40%, 40 to 60% of my total revenue to come from products that I don't have to sell manually, right? So the big focus and push for that to happen is to build out some marketing and figure out some, either probably some ads to kickstart that front side of this whole thing off. So that way there is product sales going out the door of the book, the course, the assessments and all that other stuff that I do, sales practice lab. Because I would like as opposed to like putting some big astronomical number up on the ceiling or like up on the wall, let's be thoughtful about where this revenue is coming from. So I I don't have like a monetary goal in mind. Like I'm not going to do less than I've done before, but I want like a certain split. So 40 to 60% should come from products that I don't have to go out and get because it's done through automated marketing and delivery and stuff like that. So I think
Right.
that that's going to be a very cool goal to work towards. And I think that that kind of frames it in the right light, because I, I don't want to go. So I'm at capacity on consulting. I don't have any other room to really bring on any other clients. I have a little bit of coaching room,
Mhm.
but I want my time back, right? So like I can't,
Yeah.
I'm kind of like at this limitation as
Yeah.
far as like what I'm able to do. So what does growth mean? Growth means productization a little bit. So we're going to be leaning into that a little bit this
You
year.
know what I think is interesting is because revenue mix is a really important thing to entrepreneurs, especially solopreneurs,
Hmm.
but that we just don't think about very often. In that it doesn't matter if you're year 1 or year 5, you actually start wanting to do a certain type of work, and you want
Hmm.
to do it with a certain type of people. I mean, it's why you go into business, right?
Yeah.
And it gets lost in the mix. But I think as you mapping back to kind of what you were saying earlier, I think it's interesting is like just going and picking a monetary goal not only is dumb. I mean, it's if you don't have a strategy to it, it also doesn't go back to that revenue mix and keep that in mind that I don't I don't care if I hit, you know, 2 million this year if I have
Yeah.
to do all of this.
Yes. Right.
So I think going in reverse is actually a better way because you go, my revenue mix, I want it to be this and this. What would I have to do to grow this?
Yes.
And how much of that could that be of my revenue? Now
Yep.
you're asking the right questions of yourself to start.
Yeah, that's like I'm really, for as frustrated as I was like in November and December for not being where I wanted to be, I feel the same greatness about moving in this direction around the idea of, you know, I don't do well when I'm under a paradigm of more, right? Just go do more, just go get more, just go sell more. Like that just stresses me out because I feel like there's no end to it. And there's not when you're just in more. But when it's like, okay, great, what do I need to do to have 60% of last year's revenue come in from? Okay, now that's an interesting math problem or puzzle for me to go
Right.
work on. And the
Right.
reason why I do this is because I enjoy the puzzles of it,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if I
And
don't
most
have a
of us do.
puzzle, yeah, if I don't have a puzzle, I get very bored in my role, right? And I start to just like
Well,
invent
it's
shiny
easy
things.
to go
Yeah.
more. That's when more becomes the goal.
Hmm.
Just more.
Absolutely. Um, so yeah, so that's my really big goal this year. I don't, I've got like lots of little bitty goals. Uh, but like that's really the big one, right? Is if I can do that would be a huge meaningful goal. If I can do the same amount of revenue with like 60% of like it not coming from like my effort and my time, like actually
Yeah.
right there at the moment, that would be a game changer inside the
Yeah.
business and the family. So
100%. Absolutely. That'd be awesome. Because I'm doing something similar, just different way, right? So I want to bring in income a certain way so that I don't have to rely on service, 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 service,
yep.
service. Right? And so buying real estate is a big part of my plan this year. That I've already started walking down like January 9th. I'm already on that path. So
Hmm.
that's the same reason because I want to spend my time doing the types of things in the areas of my day that make the most sense for how I'm built and how I
Hmm.
can service clients the very best.
Yeah.
They get the most and I feel the most fulfilled. So yeah, same idea. Because
Yeah.
obviously I work for a job now, but I still own most of my time. I own my schedule. I get to change my clients around wherever I need to and things like that. So there's
Hmm.
still a level of that, but I can't change the revenue mix like you can, not anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I still have a similar goal. I'm just going to do it a different way.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. It like to that individual consultant who likes going and doing like these big huge projects and stuff, cool, no judgment at all, right?
Yeah,
Because to what I think the nugget there is the thing that you said, right? You end up niching, right? And you end up niching because you kind of get your fingers burned and you realize, ooh, yeah, not a good fit. Ooh, yeah, not like, if you're really being honest with yourself.
yeah,
And I think people end up niching just because you start to realize, right? You see the changes in the wins, right? And you realize, ooh, this person's going to be not a good fit. I'm going to put this thing down. And then
yeah,
some of these situations, it happens, you don't even realize that you're doing it,
yeah,
right? As the salesperson, as the entrepreneur, you just realize this isn't worth my time. So you just kind of put a little bit of friction there. Um, I think the people who were like preaching productization and niching, they're forcing a fit, because it does happen naturally, right? As you go through the process, because you just want to get burned less. So you end up doing it that way, which I think is very interesting. So if you're that person who likes, I was talking to a guy and he's a traveling consultant, works for like one of the big four, and he wants to go out on his own because he's unsure about his future. And it's like, man, you can, but what are you going to do with that? Well, I'm probably just going to do the same thing. So why not just stay there? Because if it's just more money, I don't think that's a great reason to start a business. Like you need another lever of desire.
Yeah. I mean, it could be the very first one, but you immediately need a second one that's more meaningful to drive you.
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah.
So and same thing happens here, right? We need time for our families and our goals and everything else. So this show takes a lot of time to do it well, right? Especially if we were going to take it up a notch, which is what we were talking about doing.
Yeah.
That would be a whole job for other people, like showing up on a show, doing guests, the formatting and editing and launching and distribution. That's a whole job for some people.
Totally.
It doesn't, it didn't need to be for us. So we're kind of putting it off to the side for now.
That's right. Well, that's where we landed.
Yeah. So Mike, thanks for hanging out with us, my friend.
Yeah. A lot of just kind of rambling today, but appreciate you hanging out and listen to our journey a little bit.
Absolutely. And for, if you guys are watching this on the replay, thanks for hanging out with us. Come hang out in the Slack community. If you would like, send me a DM. I will get you a link. The community is open for people who are rad humans, right? Rad humans in this sense is defined as people who have high goals and expectations, but understand that they have to work with humans, and humans need a little bit of kind of care and thought. So if you're a highly driven person who's still empathetic and you're looking for a community, please come hang out in the Sherpa community. It's open for people like you.
Yep. And I'll be there.
Absolutely.
I'm in there every day. So
Jake is there. I'm there. We have 117 rad people in there. So other coaches, consultants, marketers, and sellers. So
that's our call to action, people. After 2 years, come Sherpa.
That's right. Come hang out in the Sherpa community.
That's it.
All right. And so Bill and I will continue to have our meetings on Mondays to kind of catch up and stay on top of each other and make sure we're both still moving. We're just not going to do it on video anymore. So
come ask us about it in Slack. We'll tell you what we talk about.
Absolutely. Awesome. All right, Bill, do you need anything today or this week?
I don't know yet. I haven't done my planning yet. I'm a little behind, but I'll let you know.
Awesome. All right. I will do the same.
Yeah.
So far, everything is rosy, like just preparing for the Dubai trip and leaving on Saturday. So, hey, Mike Simmons, Happy New Year, sir.
Hey, there he is. What's up, Mike? We'll see you in Slack too.
Yes, absolutely. You guys are awesome. Thanks for hanging out. Bill, I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon, Bill. Thanks, guys.